Hello, everyone, and welcome again to our regulatory update meeting for March 2026. So today, we will cover the latest regulatory update regarding medical devices and IVD in 8 countries. As you can see here in the slide, Singapore, Kazakhstan, Japan, China, Indonesia, El Salvador, Argentina, and UK. So in the first country today, Singapore, we reviewed 4 different updates. First of all, Singapore-Indonesia regulatory cooperation. Maybe you have heard also about UK-Singapore fast-track pathway and products registration, and we finish by an overview about the updates of software medical devices in Singapore. So let's start with the first update in Singapore. The document that we will discuss today is about a new cooperation agreement between Singapore and Indonesia. It was issued on 15th of January of this year. Understanding, as it is known as MOU, which means it is not exactly a law, but more a framework for cooperation between both regulators. So the MOU defines several important areas of collaboration. First, they will exchange regulatory information and best practices, which help in faster and better decision-making. Second, they will perform joint assessment. This can reduce duplication and align evaluation processes. Third, they will strengthen clinical trial oversight to ensure safety and consistency. Also, there is a focus on capacity building, like training programs and workshops between both authorities. And finally, they will collaborate in emerging areas like artificial intelligence. So for the industry, this MOU, or Memorandum of Understanding, brings several practical benefits. Company may see more alignment in dossier requirements between Singapore and Indonesia. This means less duplication and potentially faster approval. There will also be improved communication with regulators, making processes clear. And additionally, a company working with advanced therapy or innovative technology may benefit from the coordinated regulatory approaches. So that was about this collaboration between Singapore and Indonesia. And the second update related to the fast-track pathway or also collaboration between UK and Singapore, we'll discuss the document that is a joint press release about new fast-track regulatory pathway between UK and Singapore. It was issued last December 2025. And the document describes a new initiative called the Regulatory Innovation Corridor. It is known as the Regulatory Innovation Corridor, which is a first of its kind of collaboration between these two countries. So the goal is to accelerate access to innovative health technology while maintaining safety. So here it is more focused on innovative health technology. We'll see. So the main concept introduced is the Regulatory Innovation Corridor, as we say. This means company can engage with both MHRA and HSA at the same time instead of separately. They can receive joint advice early in the development process, especially for clinical trial. So this helps company design better study and avoid repeating the same work for each regulator. Overall, this reduces delays and makes the process more fast and efficient. So this collaboration is focused on advanced and emerging technology, as we said before. This includes gene therapy, precision immunology, and digital health solution. There is also strong emphasis on AI, both in healthcare and in regulatory processes. So for company, this initiative provides many benefits. They can interact early with regulators, which help in planning development strategy. They can design better clinical trial with clear expectation from both authority, and the regulatory pathway become more predictable, reducing the uncertainty, and overall it allows faster access to the market for, especially for the innovative product. Let's move to the third update in Singapore today. This is related to product registration. This document that we are explaining here or discussing today is a guidance GN 15 for medical device registration in Singapore. In this presentation, we will focus just on the newly added content in this 13 version, not the full document. So the most important update in this version, now there are two ways to qualify for abridged evaluation. Before we had only one option, which is the option 1 that we will explain here, and now we have two options. They have added this option number 2. So the option 1 is the traditional option. Device has approval from reference regulator directly. In this case, for example, HSA, say I trust FDA, or Europe, or other reference country, so I don't need the full evaluation. This is in simply word. Now, in the second option, this is the new one. This is what we need to understand now. The device is approved through a reliance pathway, not directly from the regulator. Like the device was approved in another country, not FDA, but this country approved it using the FDA. So that authority already relied on the FDA, so it will be accepted. Because there will be some cases that document was not available or whatever. Many scenarios can be behind this decision. So the fourth and last update in Singapore is a guideline. It's about software medical devices, and it's a guideline that focuses on software and including AI and machine learning systems. So the document follows the life cycle approach, the whole life cycle, meaning it's cover everything from the design to the post market. We'll see. So any machine learning function is treated as a medical device. This is stated clearly in this guidance. Manufacturer must explain how model works, show training and validation data, prove performance, what risk exists. Also important, model should be explainable, not only accurate. And this is one of the biggest improvements. Before, every change needed a new submission. Now, you define changes in advance. If it is approved, you can update without full resubmission. Cybersecurity is now a major focus for HSA. They require continuous monitoring of vulnerability, regular updates and patches. That is because those devices are connected, so they are all the time in contact of or more vulnerable to risk of attack. That's the main reason behind this decision. So this revision 4 of this guidelines for software medical device in Singapore has both positive and challenging impact. The positive one, it's faster updates of the changes, as we see. a clear machine learning framework, but the challenges point would be more work in documentation, more continuous monitoring, and more cybersecurity responsibility. So, in Kazakhstan, our second country today, we'll review two different updates: medical device registration changes and sampling plan for medical devices. So let's start with the first updates, medical device registration changes. This document is an official legal amendment. It updates the main regulation governing registration, re-registration, and dossier changes. One key update is the explicit inclusion of EAEU rules for medical devices. The regulation now clearly states that medical devices registration follow EAEU decision number 46. This is important because it formalizes alignment with the regional system. It ensures consistency with EAEU device requirements. The amendment confirms a very important rule. So registration certificates for medical device are issued without time limits, no expiry date. The second update in Kazakhstan is related to the sampling plan for medical devices. So this update comes from Kazakhstan authority regarding the sampling plan for 2026. It is a part of post-market surveillance using risk-based approach. So the purpose is to define how products will be selected from the market for quality testing for post-market surveillance purposes. So it stated that the sampling is done for products already in circulation. This includes devices available in the market, devices used in healthcare institutions, distributor warehouses, pharmacy, medical organization, etc. And the sampling is not random. The authority used a risk-based approach. Higher risk devices more likely to be selected. Factors may include device type, previous issue, and market importance. So what is the impact for the industry, for the company? Pressure. Your device can be selected without warning, must always be compliant, and the responsibility would be to maintain the product quality and to ensure labeling and documentation are correct. In Japan, we will review 3 different updates: material change procedure for medical devices, Philippine FDA, and Japan PMDA 2026 regulatory reliance, and finally, the QMS conformity assessment. This document goal is for the material change of procedure for medical device. It define what is considered minor and major changes more clearly, and what would be the requirement in each case. So this guideline focuses only on material that interact with the human body. This include direct contact like implants or indirect contact like fluid pathway, both cases. But this is one of the most important parts. If material change does not affect quality, safety, or performance, then you can use minor change notification instead of a full approval. But you must justify the impact is negligible. Now, the guideline clearly defines when a change is not minor. Example, increased risk, unknown impact, change affect clinical performance, change linked to adverse event. In these cases, you need partial change approval or a new approval because it is considered a major change. So this is a key operational requirement. When submitting minor change, manufacturer must provide a self-declaration. And in this document, it confirms that assessment was performed, that risks were evaluated, and there is no negative impact. But this is important. It is the responsibility of the manufacturer and they have to keep a record of all these documents. So even if no full submission is required, you must still perform testing, evaluation, and keep all documentation. Authority may request it during the review or inspection. So this is less submission, but same responsibility. This document is now between Philippine FDA and Japan PMDA. They have organized a meeting that took place on last February of this year, 2026, and where they built a cooperation agreement signed in 2025. So the main objective is to move from an agreement to a real implementation of the regulatory reliance between both countries. So the document explains why this is needed. Very high workload, simple, very high workload, many applications and limited staff. So impossible to review everything deeply from the zero. And the solution was to use reliance plus risk-based evaluations. So this is a real operational need, not just a policy. The authority will rely on different types of data. Assessment report, like technical evaluation, life cycle data, updates, which is updates after approval, safety data, like adverse events, inspection report, and this creates a full life cycle reliance. For company, the benefit is that it is a faster market access, less repeated submission work, high quality data, compliance with standard. So it is easier process, but no weaker regulation. Well, let's move this to the other updates in Japan regarding the QMS conformity assessment. So in this document, they explain how to prepare and submit documents for QMS conformity assessment. And the main focus is about documentation structure and submission process and use of MD SAP. So this is very operational guideline used during the real submission. The documents clearly show required documents. Example, quality manual, ISO 13485, audit report, supporting technical document, and it's very important. Some documents can be reused from other submissions. This reduces duplication and application. Very practical rule. If documents already submitted in another application, you can reference it. No need to resubmit. So, but the condition must clearly indicate the reference. And this guidance emphasizes that cover letter is mandatory and it must include the list of submitted documents, an explanation of omitted document, and a reference to previously submitted data. And an important operational update, the online submission is supported. Also, if multiple applications submitted, documents can be shared between them. So very important point here, the MDSAP audit report can replace part of the QMS assessment, but the condition that must follow PMDA guidance must declare facility covered, registration number. So this is clearly shown in document table in this guidance. The document includes structured table for manufacturer's seats. For each seat must include name, location, activity, and registration number. And it gives some example of product documentation. So it must include, like stating that it must include the device name, the intended use, the specification, the manufacturing process, etc. Also linked to internal documents like specification, manual, and test procedure. So the document includes a declaration also. Responsible person must confirm experience in QMS activity and minimum of 3 years of experience. The impact for the is a positive. It's an easier submission process, less duplication again, use of global audit MDSAP, but still required high quality documentation, proper structure, and complete traceability. Moving to China, our fourth country today, we reviewed 3 different updates: priority approval catalog for high-end medical devices, registration review of prefilled catheter flash syringes, and classification catalog. So this document is an announcement number 48 of 2025. It introduces the catalog of high-end medical devices eligible for priority approval. The document was released in December 2025 and was effective immediately upon publication. So one of the key areas is advanced cancer treatment. For example, the boron neutron capture therapy system is included, which uses nuclear reaction to destroy cancer cells. Also included are MRI guided medical accelerator, which combine imaging and radiation therapy. This technology represents like a cutting edge approaches in oncology nowadays. The catalog includes ultra high field MRI systems with magnetic field strength of 5 Tesla or higher. This system provides much higher image resolution compared to the standard MRI. So another major area is the brain-computer interface technology. These devices can read neural signal and interact with external systems. They are used for conditions like movement disorders, speech impairment, and other neurological diseases. So this is a highly innovative field with strong future potential. This is another example. It includes also robotic surgical systems, which improve surgical precision. Also include cardiovascular devices, which are critical for intensive care and advanced treatment for cardiology, and specialized devices such as for glaucoma implants used in minimal invasive eye surgery. So this is high-tech, innovative devices as you can see. So this catalog has strong strategic impact. It accelerates access to advanced technology for patients. It gives this priority approval for them. It encourages companies to invest in high-end medical device development, and it also strengthens China's position in global medical technology innovation. The second update in China today is related to registration of pre-filled catheter flush syringes. This document is a guiding principle. It was released in September of 2025 and applied immediately. The purpose is to guide manufacturers in preparing registration dossier for pre-filled catheter flush syringes. So a very important considered a combination product. It includes both a medical device, the syringe, and the drug, saline solution. So China applies here the principle that the highest risk component determines the classification. Since the product involves drug filling and vascular use, it is classified as class 3. This leads to much stricter regulatory requirement. So manufacturer must comply with both medical device GMP and drug GMP. This is because these products included, as we said, the component. The sodium chloride solution must have a valid drug approval in China. It must also meet Chinese pharmacopoeia testing requirement. So this dual requirement is one of the biggest challenges for manufacturer, of course, like this thing. The dossier requirement, risk management documentation, product design and technical data, sterilization, validation, packaging, and evaluation. So these devices are usually included in the exemption catalog for clinical evaluation in China. This means that the clinical trials are not always required. However, manufacturer must demonstrate equivalence to existing products. So if the equivalence cannot be shown, then clinical evaluation must be performed. So exemption from clinical trial is conditional, it's not automatic. The instruction for use must clearly define how the product should be used. It must specify that only trained medical professionals should use it. It must include aseptic handling instruction. It should also specify compatibility with different catheter tips. So it specifies clearly the requirement. Sterility also is a critical point for this product. Manufacturer must validate sterilization processes. It should be clearly stated in the packaging. Shelf life study must demonstrate stability over time. So, etc. Transport also. So this guideline, it shows that even these simple looking products, it looks like simple products, can have high regulatory complexity. Because of the combination product nature, requirements are much stricter. So manufacturer must prefer detailed documentation, even if it's a simple product. So the third update in China today is about classification catalog. This document is an update issued by the NMPA. So regarding partial adjustment to the medical device classification catalog. This type of document is very important because classification directly impacts the regulatory pathway and the requirement, of course. So for new applications, manufacturer must follow the updated classification immediately. But for devices already under review, the old classification still applies. If a device is already approved, the new classification will be reflected in the registration certificate remarks. So at renewal stage, of course, the updated classification must be applied. As an example, ultrasound probe covers or membranes also show classification differentiation. Non-sterile versions are class 1, Sterile version are class 2 due to infection control consideration. So there is more categorization, more specific classification. For example, for the ear implants were further refined into fine subcategory also. Some products like ventilation tubes are classified as class 2. More complex implants remain class 3. So this, as I said, is more precise classification and stated clearly. So moving to our fifth country today, Indonesia, we will review an update related to conformity assessment framework for X-ray equipment. Regulation number 1 of 2025 issued by Bapeten, Indonesia, for conformity assessment of X-ray equipment. So the purpose of this regulation is to ensure that all X-ray equipment complies with applicable safety standards. It defines how conformity assessment should be conducted. It also establishes certification schemes and regulatory pathways. Additionally, it regulates how certificates are issued, maintained, suspended, or revoked for this product. The documentation requirements are listed in the document, like technical documentation, test report, certificate, labeling, and Indonesian language, ISO 13485 certificates, etc. Once the conformity is confirmed, a certificate is issued. The certificate is used to obtain the SPPT SNA approval, which is a certificate of conformity to Indonesian national standard, SNI. The SNI mark can then be applied to the product. So, and this is mandatory for licensing and commercialization in Indonesia. That was brief. In El Salvador, we will review an update related to post-registration modifications. This document is a regulatory guide issued in El Salvador for post-registration modifications of medical devices. So in its second version, and which became effective last September, the purpose of this second version is to explain how to manage changes after a device has already been registered, like changes post-registration. So for labeling changes, applicant must submit updated labeling design. This includes primary and secondary packaging. Any change in design or printed information must be reported. Technical changes include modification to formulation or product specification. Applicant must submit updated technical documentation. They must also justify that safety and performance are not negatively impacted. So all these changes are more critical and require strong evidence. Changes to manufacturer or condition site require additional documentation, like GMP certificate and free sale certificates. And if applicable, contract manufacturing agreement must be provided. For product expansion, adding new models or codes must be similar to registered products. Same intended use required, same manufacturer required. A very important rule is that the authority will issue only one observation during this modification. If the applicant does not correct the issue properly on time, the application is closed. So the process must then be restarted from the beginning, including the payment. So this shows strict administrative control and require careful submission. Registration is valid for 5 years, and renewal requires submission of general requirements and supporting documents. The authority may verify certificate directly with issuing body. An important thing, renewal should not include modification. Those must be submitted separately. In Argentina, data related to used and reconditioned medical devices. This disposition 224 or 224, 2026, issued by the ANMAT, was published on 2nd of February of this year and becomes effective 45 working days after the publication. So the regulation introduces a new framework for handling used and reconditioned medical devices in Argentina. There are 3 main import scenarios defined in the regulation. Devices can be reconditioned before import, imported as issued, it can be reconditioned before import, or imported as used without reconditioning, or imported to be reconditioned locally. So each scenario has specific documentation requirement depending on the scenario. The regulatory requirements. The regulatory requirement depend on the device risk class. So for low risk classes, like class 1 and 2, only an import notification is required, and for higher risk, prior authorization must be obtained. So this is a reconditioned medical devices, but need some regulatory processes to have the authorization to use it or to import it. This is the most important rule in this regulation that we will explain now. If any modification is introduced that was not defined or approved by the original manufacturer, the device is considered a new product. So this means a completely new registration is required. Importation can be done by different entities. This includes authorized importers, manufacturer, and reconditioner. In some cases, end users such as hospitals can also import devices. However, they must meet some regulatory requirements. After import, the applicant must submit an import notice within 48 hours. Devices they must remain compliant with regulatory requirements, and authority may inspect and verify compliance. Our last country today, UK, will review an update related to recognition of CE marked market medical devices. So this is, as highlighted here, is a public consultation, still a public consultation. This document is targeted, issued by the MHRA in the United Kingdom. It was published on the 16th of February of this year and focuses on the future regulatory approach for CE marketed medical devices in the Great Britain. This is not a final regulation, as I said, but a consultation. That means that stakeholders are invited to provide feedback before changes are implemented. But it applies only to Great Britain, not Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland is not included. So the background behind that, as you know, after Brexit, the UK introduced UKCA marking as its own conformity system. However, CE marking continued to be accepted temporarily to avoid supply disruption. The transitional period currently extends until 2028 or 2030, depending on the device type. Today, around 90% of the devices in Great Britain are still CE marked. So this shows a strong dependence of European approvals. The main issue is ensuring continuous access to medical devices. So many manufacturers delayed transition to UKCA due to complexity and cost. If CE recognition stops, it could lead to shortage. Therefore, the UK needs a long-term regulatory solution. So the first proposal is to extend the acceptance of devices approved under the old European MDD directive. This would align Great Britain timelines with the European timelines until December 2028. The goal is to avoid supply gaps during the transition to EU MDR. So this is mainly a short-term continuity measure. That was the most discussed in the past. Now, this second proposal, this is the main proposal of the consultation. The idea is to indefinitely accept CE markets devices that comply with European MDR or IVDR. This means no additional UK pre-market review would be required. There are two options: recognize all devices or only those with equal or lower risk classification in Great Britain. But we have a third scenario. The third proposal introduces an international reliance route. This applies to devices that are classified at higher risk in Great Britain than in Europe. These devices would undergo a limited review by UK-approved body. This is faster than full UKCA, but still ensures safety oversight. That's it, our three proposal. It's consultation, and we will see. Still have time for one question. Thank you for your attendance.
Hi, Iman. Can I ask one question?
Yes.
Iman? Hi. It's
yes,
regarding
yes, of course.
Singapore. Yeah. Can you hear me? It's regarding Singapore.
Yes, yes.
You mentioned that
yes.
In version 13 of the Singapore registration guidance, you mentioned some options. I found that the option number 2 is unclear. Can you please explain it further? The option number 2 of version 13.
So yeah, this is the new option, the newly introduced option. It's as I said, the first option, it was the reliance on the registration in reference country, and this second option states that this is for devices that are approved through a reliance pathway, not directly from the regulator, which is like I'll give you an example. A device approved in Saudi Arabia by SFDA would be accepted for reliance, and SFDA, because SFDA used the European CE certificate to approve it, so this is like an indirect way, the same but in an indirect way. Why? Because as I said before, it would be useful for a situation where the applicant does not have direct access to reference regulatory approval like the CE or the FDA for some reason. Sometimes some manufacturers do not want to share that, as the practice and the experience demonstrate that. So that's what was reported in the guidance, and that was the reason behind this decision. So instead, they rely on an approval from another authority that has already used those references. So it's enable it's an indirect reliance, and so it gives more option for this abridged pathway in Singapore.
Okay,
thank you for your attendance and hope to see you in the next RegTalk for April, next April. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Iman.